Welcome to Cruising Altitude, the podcast where we rise above the turbulence of life and step into the freedom, clarity, and luxury of living life at our highest level. I'm Kelly O'Shea, business development consultant, private jet advisor, investor relations specialist, author, solo mom, and living proof that you can crash into life's turbulence, pick up the pieces, and still arrive in style. Whether you're navigating business, healing, or building a life that feels limitless, this is your boarding pass to living a life you were brave enough to chase. So buckle up, we're ready for takeoff. Welcome back to Cruising Altitude. I'm your host, Kelly O'Shea, and today I have Paul Fioravanti, the owner of Corval Partners, with me. Paul is MBA, MPA, and CTP, an interim CEO and advisor. Paul, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kelly. Great to be here.
So tell me a little bit about, on your LinkedIn, it says, grow it, fix it, exit. I love that. Is that what an interim CEO does?
It's part of it, actually. It's a new tagline that we just put in place, and we have a great IP law firm called Caldwell, so they're in the process of trying to figure out trademarking and everything else on that. I'm not sure how that works, but they're a great firm if anybody's looking for an expert firm that does that kind of work. But it really is a positioning statement about the kind of value that we create in businesses. And company's been around since 1996. It was started by my late partner mentor, Jim Malone. Jim was a 6-time Fortune 500 CEO, advisor to 2 presidential administrations. And Jim was really sort of like a second dad to me. And I had the opportunity to work with him for just about 11 years. And then prior to his passing, I took over the firm. And over the years, we've worked on hundreds of projects. I've been in more than 90 projects in more than 40 industries myself. And really, companies, organizations are always going through periods of change. And the grow it, fix it, exit are really sort of the inflection points that come when either they need more capital, they're in some state of crisis, they're looking to exit. In some cases, they just have kind of lost their way, or they need a growth strategy. You know, a lot of companies, even early stage companies, have great ideas, but they're a little bit short on execution. So we create a lot of value by bringing people aboard that can be short-term or longer-term advisors. And as part of that, we do a lot of interim work, coming in as everything from interim CEOs and CFOs to bringing in subject matter expertise on everything from the defense industry to IT, cybersecurity, HR. A lot of companies struggle with sales and business development. It's probably one of the most common failure points. They just don't know how to sell and market.
Right.
And it's kind of like the old proverb about the the candle under the bushel basket.
Right.
It's something great, but nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
So it's a common failure point for organizations. So we always come at it from the standpoint of how can we help? And I do a lot of phone calls that are almost more therapy than anything else, and people are just looking for guidance sometimes, and we try to just be kind and pay it forward and try to help people out of a tight spot. And I'll always say, look, if we can't help you, if we're not the right resource, odds are we know the person that you should speak with, and we'll make that connection and bridge that connection.
What size companies are you typically working with?
Right now I'm working on one that's almost $500 million in revenue.
Oh, wow.
And they're operating in 40 states. It's a very different kind of business. They do a lot of government contracting. But it's above a certain level. It's funny, in the private equity world, you'll hear a phrase, middle market.
Yeah.
And that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. But I would say we've worked with businesses as little as 5 or 10 million in revenue, up to publicly traded companies. Kind of everything in between. We did a restructuring on the insurance industry, the reinsurance industry in the state of Florida back in, I want to say it was 08 or 09. Governor Bush at the time had asked Jim to step in and be the chairman of Citizens Reinsurance. So we worked on that. But And it's every industry you can think of.
Yeah.
It's manufacturing, it's retail, it's defense, it's consumer products, infrastructure, energy, you name it. I was a pharmaceutical company CEO for a year and did a massive turnaround on a global pharma company.
Okay. Wow,
So,
that's great. So you're not really industry specific.
no, and what's funny is every company will think that their industry is kind of unique and special, and there are nuances, but a lot of common denominators.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to a lot of common sense, and I always kind of draw back from. I grew up in a family business, and honestly, I learned probably more business lessons from my father and grandfather than I did, getting a graduate degree or.
And was that in Rhode Island where you grew up?
Yes.
What part?
Providence.
That's so
actually.
interesting because, the president of Fly Alliance, Chris Tasca, is Providence, and
Oh,
his
okay.
family is all Providence. His
Oh,
cousins were Tasca
okay.
Auto. His dad was in jewelry.
Oh yeah, I
So,
know
and
that.
it's funny
Know that
'cause
family. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All
And
right,
it's funny because
that's
the last person I had on last week, she knows him too, because Rhode Island is small.
It's very small, and
when you're in business that way.
and the Tasca family is an excellent family. Actually, when I was in graduate school, I did a project with Bob Tasca, the dad.
Oh, nice.
Bob Tasca won, and he was an awesome guy. And I spent a whole day with him going around to different dealers, and he had written a book called You Will Be Satisfied. It was about his approach to the automotive industry, but the family's done a stellar job growing that franchise and
Oh, yeah.
going beyond Ford, Lincoln, Mercury. But they're great people. My brother, actually, one of my brothers went to school with Bob
Okay.
Jr., who's a great guy. They're a wonderful family.
Yeah, they are. And Chris has
That's the other side.
Yeah, that's the other
Jewelry
side, and he's the
yeah.
second, and he has Chris Tasca, the third
That's
his son.
hilarious. Wow,
And he's
small
great.
world.
I know, and he's great in private jets, but also, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about my trajectory. So, last year I kind of like paused the agency for a little bit because I didn't see PR taking me through the rest of my career.
Okay.
And I decided to relaunch as business development, right? Because I really did all of that for Magellan Jets and really for all of my clients. When I interviewed other agencies this year to do my rebranding, I realized how good I was at what I did.
Okay.
And I think it would be a shame to not to stop taking on clients, right? So I thought, but PR is just a part of it, I thought. So last year I tried my hand on social media to learn that. I saw what was out there in terms of buying articles, buying followers, right? And if that was going to be worth it for my clients. And then in the past working with Magellan Jets, I had all that marketing experience and the strategy. And so that's how I've relaunched my business, which I think is smart because to me, PR was always about brand awareness. So nowadays that brand awareness, it could come from a magazine, but you're going to pay for it. Or it can come from partnerships. And when all of my clients are trying to reach the ultra high net worth. So it becomes a little easier for me because then we become like a big happy family and they all work together. Right. And so that is what I'm focusing on moving forward. And you mentioned business development being kind of a part of what you offer as well.
I think you're on the right track. And beginning of my career, I spent a lot of time in kind of the marketing world. Mm-hmm. And I know a little bit about PR, enough to be dangerous, but I do know it's changed tremendously. And I think when people think about PR, they think about these kind of archetypes like the big old firms, the Hill and Knowltons, or they think it's like Mad Men or something like that. But reality is now it's really become kind of pay to play. And as we talked about this before, LinkedIn and those kinds of media platforms, they're so crowded. And there has to be a level of experience and authenticity because there are so many sort of fake it till you make it people out there. And, one of my pet peeves is everybody's a coach, it's kind of funny.
Right. I know.
But I think in terms of business development, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but I think businesses clearly need help in figuring out who their customer is, what their market is, and also, what I was going through this exercise yesterday with a client, how do you map the funnel? Answer the question, where does your business come from?
Right.
And it's not just leveraging media, it's creating a value proposition and trying to connect with a customer so that you're solving a problem. Mm-hmm. And I have this thing about price too. While a lot of industries are price sensitive and they sell on the basis of price, that doesn't necessarily equate to value. And in your world, there's a huge opportunity cost of wasted time, right? And that's really, time is the reason why people travel privately, because the opportunity cost is too high.
Right.
I also am fascinated by the luxury products and services market. I'm not a real indulgent person, but I'm fascinated by how the marketing works. And if you look at, some of the brands that lead that category, like one of my favorite CEOs to watch and learn from is a guy named Vin Lee.
Okay.
Vin is very understated, but Vin is chairman of a massive family office called Grand Metropolitan, and they own a whole portfolio of luxury brands, jewelry brands. And if you follow his posts, he's really the expert on how luxury works.
Yeah.
And there's a concept in luxury called Veblen goods, where the more prices increase, the more demand there is, and how the market is intentionally restricted for supply.
Okay.
Like Rolex kind of plays that game. De Beers has played that game with diamonds for years. And one of the things in that space is it's sort of all intertwined. Like if you pick up an issue of like the Robb Report, right? It's all the same consumer, right? It's the Ferrari buyer. It's the person that travels on a Gulfstream. It's people that live or vacation in certain areas. And those markets are generally very inelastic with respect to demand.
Right.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I just do. It's not my world, but I admire it, and I think it's a fascinating economic reality.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I thank God every day that I was in that world during COVID, because that's what kept me in business. I mean, and before my husband passed away, we were definitely arguing over finances and stuff. And so it was good that Magellan Jets and IYC yachts were doing great in 2020 because the ultra high net worth were still traveling. And then that even became people who always had the means but never did it, were starting to fly private and to take yachts during COVID. And then once you start, it's really hard to go back, right? And so that really, COVID really boosted the private aviation industry. Whereas before, even in PR, it used to be thought of as more of a luxury, but I really hit the jackpot with the coverage during COVID, like New York Times, Wall Street Journal, whereas they kind of ignored me in the past because it was more of a luxury. But to your point, I believe private aviation is an essential business tool. Yachting, not so much, but boating, but private aviation, especially now with the big, beautiful bill. I have a potential client now who asked to see a side-by-side comparison of buying a 50-hour jet card versus 50 hours fractional, because they can write off the fractional component. And so, Tasca himself, Chris, has been on like 150 aircraft transactions alone in the past few months, advising people on how to buy, because then we also manage it. So I felt very fortunate that I've been in private aviation my whole career. And that, the one thing I dropped along the way was my original passion was doing PR for hotels in the Caribbean, especially. And now I'm getting back. That's why I'm taking my real estate license, because I'm going to be selling for Mandarin Oriental, Turks and Caicos, and then Eden Rock, St. Bart's. And a lot of these nicer hotels are building residences attached to it. So while they might not be ready to hire a consultant, and some of them are, I think, but the residences surely want to have someone selling them. So.
And actually, what's happening now is I'm a Marriott brand guy, and I've spent way too many nights in Marriotts because that's pretty much what I do. I travel all the time. So, but I follow all that. I get all the ambassador emails and everything else. But Marriott is getting very focused on that market, and they're doing a lot of creative things that are kind of outside the guardrails of traditional. The hierarchy, the Fairfield Courtyard, all the way up to JW Marriott and Ritz-Carlton, but it's more private residences. They've kind of taken the Airbnb concept next level.
Oh, I like that.
And they're also doing build-to-suit projects as well. But they see that the housing market is very stratified with regard to price, but also with regard to how people are fractionally allocating their time. And since COVID, if nothing else, it taught us that we can kind of work anywhere.
Yeah.
And people that are in that realm of having a lot of flexibility, maybe they're business owners, maybe they're executives, they can kind of work from anywhere. And this is sort of my mode of working. Recently, I mentioned I took an engagement, and day one, people are great to work with, and they loaded up this office with chairs and giant monitors and all this stuff. And I said, I don't need any of this. They're like, what? I said, yeah, take out the chairs. I don't want the big monitors. I don't need multiple monitors. They're like, you work on a laptop? Yeah, that's how I work. I just don't need any of that.
Yeah.
And so part of it is this kind of decluttering. And years ago, I was working on a project in New Jersey. And originally it was like, we need you to come in for 90 days and this whole thing. So I checked in, and then I checked out like 3 years later.
Okay.
Wow. So one day I'm at breakfast, and there's this nice older lady. She was probably close to 80, and she was like smiling and, hi, how are you? I see you at breakfast all the time. I said, yeah, nice to see you too. And so she's like, how long have you been here? I said, I don't know, a couple of months. And I said, how long have you been here? She said, I've been here for 7 years. I said, what? She said, well, listen to my story. My husband passed away, and my kids moved away, and we had a business, and we had some real estate, and had a car, and all this. And she's going through the whole laundry list of, I sold the car, got rid of the business, got rid of the house, and I live here, and I just have one bill at the end of the month, and I have housekeeping and breakfast and all this stuff. And I said, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
but apparently the cruise industry is doing this, where older people that are retired, they just stay on a cruise ship, and they sell the house, and they just go.
I love it.
They just go. So Marriott and these other chains are looking at this saying, maybe this is a trend where people are just intentionally transient. Mm-hmm. And they just go. Yeah. I think it's very interesting.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah. I mean, well, that's it. And for me, my dream client would be to have a boutique hotel collection in the Caribbean. And I really love St. Bart's and Turks and Caicos because they're just high end, obviously, more luxurious islands. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I loved my job with St. Bart's, and I brought press over there 4 times a year. And then they also had hired me to also be doing their travel agency relations at a time. So, and that ended for a few reasons. But, one, I also had my son, but I've gotten back with them, and I'm excited to go back there. And what you said about Airbnb is interesting, because I've noticed there's lots of villa companies on St. Bart's and Turks and Caicos, and they've done well since Airbnb, because they'll list the villas on Airbnb. Because I was just looking, I want to take my son for spring break, and I was like, oh, we can get like these really nice villas that used to be way out of reach. Now they're more, because it's more now. I think more people can go to St. Bart's now. Sorry guys, sorry to blow up the island, but
prices have come down too. And I was in Vegas for one day for a construction meeting, and last week, and I noticed, there's a noticeable drop off in traffic. Yeah. Come out of the hotel, and had a meeting somewhere else. So I come out of the hotel, I'm with 3 other guys, and there's a taxi stand. Walk right up to the taxi stand, 10 cars in a row, no line. I've never seen that before.
That's crazy.
No lines in the restaurants. And I think part of it is, again, pricing is such a nuance, but I think that the hotels have gotten silly with room rates, just generally, hotels everywhere, and all the resort fees and all that kind of stuff. So I think people are just being choosy about where they go. Yeah. And it's not so much, even Orlando is, the volume there has changed. Prior to this project, I spent 5 months in Orlando market. So I was kind of watching that as well. And you just didn't see as many, minivans loaded up with kids and that sort of thing, because it's expensive. And I don't know that the experience and the quality and the attentiveness is there all the time. I noticed like a lot of the hotels are not well cleaned like they used to be. So it's different.
Yeah, different time. So to your point, in 2020, I was still doing pretty well. and to heal from my ex-husband passing away, we would travel. I traveled with Dylan wherever we could, right? The Ritz-Carlton Amelia Island was open, so we went to Turks and Caicos. So, but I think I was using it as an escape back then. And I was also drinking then. And so I didn't mind sitting at the pool drinking, whatever. But it's different. But I also noticed we're not getting very good service. And not only that, my son doesn't want to sit at restaurants. So once I stopped drinking, I was like, I don't need this. If the service isn't great, I'm overpaying. You're kind of forced to eat the food that they have in the hotel when my son at the time, who's 5, doesn't like that. So the past couple years, we just did Airbnbs because I was on more of a budget, and it was really fun for him. And I don't drink anymore again. So like we both like our built-in chill time in the room.
Okay.
And that's like important to us, but you can get that in a villa. A lot of these villas are smart too. Again, they're attached to a hotel. Like we're going to go to Costa Rica for our birthdays. It's still really expensive to stay in the all-inclusive. So
How old is he?
He'll be 10.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to do a villa that's attached to a hotel.
Okay.
But he's more into the adventure, but he likes to like regroup in the hotel.
Oh,
or just
okay.
to chill in the room. And like he doesn't
That's
like
funny.
to eat at all. Yeah. So but the point is the hotel amenities. For me back then, it was also like the kids club and stuff. I could drop him somewhere, but now he's old enough he can be alone for a few hours. So, so it's interesting. But I wanted to talk about you offer so many services. So some of these things, are you still doing the like financial advisory as well, and executive coaching and management and leadership development?
Yes, we do, and it's actually it's one of those areas of practice that it's not consistent, and it goes through periods where everybody wants that kind of service, and times where everything's fine. So I always use the analogy: people don't call the fire department if there's no fire,
right?
So, and a lot of times what happens is we will engage, and you start working on something, particularly like a turnaround restructuring, and then you'll get this, we should have, if we had only started 90 days ago, and you're like, well, the engagement letter draft I gave you was 120 days ago, but you waited.
Right.
So Jim always used to say, time is not your friend, right? Mm-hmm. So if it's a challenging situation, or conversely, even if a company needs to grow and they need access to capital or something like that, there's no point in waiting.
Right.
Waiting doesn't really help you. But in terms of scope of services, it's really been menu driven, and we've kept the firm relatively small. And we are all contractors, so we kind of pull the best and the brightest depending on what the need is. And I always joke, when you grow up in New England, like everybody knows a guy, right?
Right.
So they're like, whatever, my AC's broken, I know a guy. So So in terms of the kinds of services that we offer, I just had a situation recently where the issue is defense-related cybersecurity compliance. Okay. I know that guy. Right? And like he's the guy, right? So it's a matter of getting the right people. Other examples over the years, do you have a manufacturing CFO? Do you have a construction CFO? Do you have an HR expert? And when you do this kind of work, you work with so many great people. And what keeps me doing this insane schedule, I'm literally on 18 to 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of travel and everything else. But I love what I do. I don't ever see myself retiring. That just seems pointless to me.
Yeah.
But again, to each his own. But I do believe that if you can genuinely help people and create value, I just think that's a good thing to put out in the world. And we create tremendous value.
Yeah.
Like I'm working with a group right now. It's probably one of the best companies that I've ever worked with. It's a technology company based out west. 3 partners. They started the business in 1997. It's been profitable every year since day one. They have audited financials since day one. They have every customer service call. 98% of calls handled within 6 seconds in the U.S. They have 86% resolution of any situation, customer calls with a problem. So they provide like cloud services, document scanning, storage, variety of different things. And they just launched this AI platform that they invested over $50 million of R&D into. Wow. And we produced a video with an excellent group called Strategic Perception. And they're the best in terms of public relations when you talk about PR.
Yeah.
And I'll share that video with you, not online, but I can send you a link under NDA, of course.
Okay.
But that video really tells the story of that company and how it evolved, and it talks about the evolution of the partners and what they saw, and it ties the story back to companies like Apple and NVIDIA. And for example, Steve Jobs was fired, I think, 3 times. Jensen Huang from NVIDIA started that company while he was working in Denny's.
Wow.
Right. I mean, there's
So
some incredible stories
yeah.
about levels of determination,
Yeah.
but a lot of it is, again, what do they do in value creation for their customers? So that's an interesting example of, entrepreneurs that have built something, and they're very careful who they hand the baton to.
Right.
So succession planning is part of that too. But my point I was trying to make was, in the beginning when we engaged with them, I was just very direct with them. I said, okay, I know you guys love each other, you've done a great job here, but when I speak with you individually, I get 3 different stories about the company. It's like being in an episode of Law and Order,
Right.
and I get 3 different eyewitness accounts.
Yeah.
So we have to get you on the same page so that when you go through buyer diligence, they understand what your company is. I mean, you understand it, but the ability to communicate that, it's an entirely different thing. So, when you were talking about PR and what that means to different people, I think there are just a lot of good businesses that are just really bad at promoting. And it's so easy to get crowded in a crowded social media space.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you really do need someone, I think, to just, help guide the whole process. Again, it's like
You do.
every component, the social media, the pay for play, the events, the partnerships. Not every brand is a content creator. Not every brand is a marketer. And that's where I've always come in. Magellan Jets was a big company. IYC Yachts was a big company. The St. Bart's Tourism Committee was pretty well staffed, but all of my other clients have been pretty much startups. And I've gone in and I've done everything for them, which is why I relaunched as business development, because I've basically been doing it anyway. And then that way I'm not, it's stressful working on commission, which I have been actually this year for Fly Alliance, and really trying my hand at sales. I mean, that is a whole nother beast, and I'm getting good at it, but man, it's not for the weak.
But everybody is in sales.
Right.
Regardless what you do in an organization, you're in sales.
Right. And I've always been, that's what they would tell me at Magellan, because I was so good at PR, because I was selling the Magellan Jets to the media.
Okay.
So it's the same thing, right? And then the personal brand, to your point. I mean, I'm really good at relationships. So I don't love the sales part, and I don't think I don't think cold calling is going to be my strong suit. I think my strong suit is going to be through the partnerships, creating special cards for whole groups that makes sense, and then building the relationships, having a half a dozen to a dozen clients that I'm always there on the tarmac to greet them and understand them and know what they want. That's where I'm going to really excel, because that's where I excelled in PR. And that's where AI can't replace, is that human connection.
No, there are a lot of, I'm a big fan of using AI as sort of a leverage tool and a time management tool, but it's perfectly imperfect.
Right.
And it's going to take a while for a lot of the problems to flesh out, but it does save a tremendous amount of time. But it's not a proxy for, human connection and the quality that comes from human thinking, right? Human thought. I mean, that's not, again, it depends on the application, but there are so many nuances to running an organization or positioning your client or my client in the marketplace that AI cannot do that.
Right.
It's a relationship thing. And we still rely on, ironically, despite all the telecommunications tools and the Zoom and the Teams and the Google Meet platforms, there's no substitute other than the in-person visit or the meeting. But I also think that there's a time and a place for that. Like, for example, when we engage in new projects, we tend to front load a lot of the time spent on the engagement. And I call it, the sponging. You're sort of absorbing everything that's happening with the organization. You're learning who does what. But at some point, you're probably 75% saturation level. And then you don't really need to be there for the most part. And it can be remote, and it can be, you're on a plane or you're wherever you are. But the notion of blending business and personal time, it's become very sort of enmeshed. And I think for high achiever personalities, there's no off switch.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, again, your clientele has an opportunity cost value of flying the way they fly. Right.
Right.
And I look at some of the pioneers in that space, and do you follow Jesse Itzler?
Oh yeah, I love him.
He's a neat guy.
And
I never
Sarah
met
Blakely's
him.
husband.
I never met him, but I love his posts, and he's just a really cool guy.
Well,
and,
he was
a Marquis Jet.
He was a genius with Marquis Jet because
He's
he
way ahead
went
of
to
the
a
curve.
conference, bought like next door, bought all the donuts.
Muffins, yeah.
The muffins.
The muffin
And so
store,
then
yeah.
every guy at the conference had to go get their muffins from him. So he probably
Yes.
sold so many jet cards that day. I'm like, genius.
And I think it was Warren Buffett that bought him out, Berkshire Hathaway. Yeah. It's pretty wild. It's funny, you'll appreciate this. So years ago, I think they're still headquartered there. So in Rhode Island was the corporate headquarters for Textron.
Okay.
And the governor, way back, this governor, Bruce Sunland, who was just a really neat guy. He was a self-made guy. I could talk all day about him, but he's long past. But he was a great governor, and when the state was going through a banking crisis, he had to freeze all the assets, kind of sort that all out. There was a whole big fraud that happened. But he was a governor that just got stuff done,
Yeah.
right? And he didn't care about party labels or anything like that. So at the time, Textron they had, their jet parked at the FBO, and they had a guy from Division of Taxation up there kind of monitoring, how long the jet was idling on the runway, and they sent like a pro rata tax bill.
Oh yeah, that's the
So
worst.
the story went like this: like the CEO of Textron calls the governor's office and says, "Like, are you kidding? Really? Like, okay, we could just pull out of the state and just move the corporate headquarters." So somebody was told, okay, there's a balance to that,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay, it's not that they don't want to pay taxes, but okay, like,
Yeah.
let's talk about this.
Right.
Let's come up with a strategy or a policy so that it's equitable for businesses. But as you know, I mean, you grew up in New England, so the New England states are probably the most adept at chasing away businesses. Mm-hmm. Connecticut, Massachusetts did it with, technology, defense, the firearms industry. I mean, it just keeps going. And then recently, Hasbro, big toy company,
yeah.
they said we're out of Rhode Island.
Oh,
We're moving
wow.
to Boston
Interesting.
for a couple of different reasons. I think talent pool, not that, there's tremendous talent in that company and tremendous history and legacy, but I think a lot of it is the economic climate.
Yeah.
But didn't mean to go off in the economic
No,
development
that's okay. Well,
tangent there, but
no, on that note, I love what Stephen Ross is doing to West Palm Beach. I think it's
Yes.
fabulous because
Yes.
I lived here. So after I worked for Andrea Mitsakos PR, she had the resorts in the Caribbean. She had the
Okay.
boutique Island Outpost, which was Chris Blackwell's properties, 5 boutique resorts in Jamaica, and they all told a story. And he was
Okay.
the founder of Island Records. So he was the first to
Oh,
sign Bob
okay.
Marley. And Bob Marley, I love.
Oh, Bob Marley, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Island
and
Records.
Chris Blackwell told me when I was over there, because I came from less than Andrea, and he said, you'd be surprised at what you can build from nothing. And Bob Marley said those words to him in the movie that I saw, and I was like, oh, wow, it's like Bob said that to me.
Great story.
Yeah, and that's why, that was like how I got into the PR there. But then after I left her, because she wasn't going to see me as more than an assistant, so I needed to level up, and I went to be the PR director for Bluefish Concierge on Clematis. I was 26, and I was like, this is cool, but it wasn't enough. And this was
Okay.
2006, so 2007. I felt I had to go to New York to make something of myself, but I think
Okay.
I think 20-year-olds today don't necessarily have to do that. I think they can just
No,
stay.
they
I was
don't.
literally living in City Place, and Stephen Ross has made it so exciting now. I mean, they have like everything there, and they're building more. All these businesses are coming down. So my main focus with Fly Alliance has actually been focusing on the businesses that are coming down here under
That's
the Wall
smart.
Street South umbrella, right? And reaching out to
smart.
their COOs. How are you guys traveling in between Wall Street North and South? So, I mean, it's really interesting. I think we're definitely in the right place at the right time, which is why I've kind of been like relaunched as business development, but I'm doing so many things, right? The real estate license I can sell and everything, because I do really believe we're in the right place at the right time here.
I think you nailed it, though. The the migratory patterns are fascinating. Like, for example, like during and after COVID, there was a big flight of New York, advisory firms, law firms, investment banking firms going to Miami, and with very mixed results, but a lot of them have gone the opposite direction now, or they've moved somewhere else. And the thing in Florida about people come from on the Gulf Coast, you had a lot of migration coming down 75. On the Atlantic coast, people coming down 95. And maybe they just got here and they're like, oh, it's way too hot. So either they went home and those are fullbacks, or they went kind of to the Carolinas and they're halfbacks.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of this, football terminology. But I think what's happened too is, sustainable zoning and economic development planning has a lot to do with it. But the really astute economic leadership and governmental leadership has figured out that everything's sort of intermodal, right? You have obviously train infrastructure, you have airports. There's a big build out right now at RSW in Fort Myers, but the private terminal infrastructure, industrial parks. Do you have access to if you're going to set up a manufacturing business or a data center, what's the electrical grid infrastructure? So it's become more of a cohesive plan, but everything that you do is related to that.
Right.
Because just like with us, with our practice, I always say, they call us when there's a change. That's usually what happens.
Right.
Or they realize they need to make a change so that they can prepare for what's next.
Right.
And you can literally just follow that and track that. And for example, right now, there's a huge data center build out in West Texas, Abilene. And there was traditionally not a lot going on in Abilene.
Yeah.
But when Elon Musk and Larry Ellison and President Trump sort of got in and figured out that, there's demand for that, that became a logical place to do that. There was a massive data center recently completed in Louisiana as well. But that triggers a whole bunch of other satellite businesses, and there's a ripple effect to that economic development.
Yeah.
And part of it is transportation and, hotel infrastructure, and people have to stay somewhere. One of the big projects in Alaska right now that's on the drawing board again, is a LNG pipeline that's going to run 825 miles from Prudhoe Bay down to Anchorage. It'll kind of track almost the transatlantic pipeline. But that project's going to bring, they estimate, $100 billion of economic value to the state of Alaska. And the president is pushing on that. And again, that's the type of thing where, all right, so if we're bringing in 10,000 workers, where do they live and sleep and work and eat and fill their car and bank and all that kind of stuff? Like you have to build that infrastructure.
Right.
But I see that the world is becoming a much smaller place. And if some of the visionaries like Musk, he's kind of like the real life Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And, he's got these ideas of colonizing Mars and all this kind of stuff, but it's kind of wild. But the world is a smaller place, but at some point I think the galaxy becomes a smaller place.
Yeah.
It's very odd, but
sky's no longer the limit.
Yeah, I think in your son's generation, he's going to see things that,
he'll be driving
would
a flying
blow
car.
our minds. Yeah.
Right. I know, it's crazy.
It's a cool time.
All right. Well, where can people find you, Paul?
Usually on an airplane or in a rental car or a hotel.
Your website?
It's Corval. It's QORVAL.com. And everybody gets tripped up on that name. There's no U in there. QORVAL. And it's something Jim came up with years ago, and it's core values. That's where it comes from.
I like that.
Core values. And Jim's core values were profit, growth, and fun.
Nice. I'm all about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
So,
well, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. And, I do a lot of conversations and podcasts, and they're not always this much fun. So I appreciate it.
Good. Well, we're just getting started.
All right. Very good. Fair enough.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.